So, welcome again. I'm Vanessa. It's great to have you all joining us. I'm part of the marketing team here at Boken doing customer and community marketing. I've been with the team for about 6 months based in London, and I've been working on all things community like these webinars. Naturally, working for a travel company, I love to travel, and my next trip is in Vietnam. So I have lots of exciting experiences and tours booked. So if you are going to Vietnam or have been before, I would love to know your recommendations. So you can put that in the question box, and I'll go through that afterwards to pull some from my list. That was just a side plug for my own benefit because I would like to do as much as I can while I'm there. And today I am joined by my co-host Brennan Bliss, who is the CEO and founder of Propellic, a specialized travel marketing agency known for its expertise in SEO, paid media, creative services, and link building. Brennan has positioned Propellic as a trusted partner in driving digital visibility, engagement, and growth within the travel industry. You'll hear from him very shortly, and I'm very excited to hear all the wisdom he has to share with us. But just before we get to that, for those of you who are joining who are not familiar with what Boken is, we are a booking and channel management system. We provide operators with the tools to grow direct bookings, connect and sell more widely with our marketplace of thousands of resellers, and manage operations smoothly through our catalog of user-friendly tools. And I'll share more about us at the end, but I'm excited to now pass you over to Brennan, who will take you on a deep dive into all things performance booking. So I will just allow.
Now, 3 minutes of fumbling with how to do a screen share, and we'll get there. Okay, I got it. It popped up. Look at that. That wasn't hard at
Nice.
all. That was not hard at all. Okay. Oh, look, we get to see the same exact slides again. Sorry, that was not
Just in
not
case.
my best work. Not my best work. Alrighty. Hi, everybody. Great to be chatting with you. Just as Vanessa said, and Vanessa, thank you so much for hosting this and for inviting me to do this.
Cool.
It's an honor, and I'm so happy to see that there was such a good turnout. I real quickly, Propellic, travel marketing is what we do. Got about 20 million in media under management, and influenced about $1 billion in booking revenue since we got into the travel industry about 3.5, 4 years ago. Got a team of about 20, 25, somewhere in there. Here's some of them. Just as Vanessa said, we do everything from strategy behind digital to paid media, SEO, creative, and reporting and analysis around all of that. I'll skip this just to zoom through, show you a couple of the people that we work with. But now the fun part, now the reason we're all here. We're going to learn a little bit about booking generation. Now, obviously, there's a healthy distribution strategy for a tour brand. It includes, in most cases, multiple different distribution channels. Everything from third party through, obviously, organizations like Viator to direct through your website, even the website that you can build with Boken. But what I want to talk about a little bit today is how to drive those direct bookings because, and you can work with Boken on the third party distribution side, and I'm sure that they can give you guidance and advisory on how to go about generating and building that side of your business. Before I dive in, I wanted to take a quick moment outside of the standard presentation to talk a little bit about what's happening with AI and search. So 13 years ago, I started teaching myself SEO. 13 years ago. And it has changed a lot in 13 years, but it has changed more in the past 2 years than it changed in the previous 11. So I want to give a quick second to cover some of those things that we're seeing. If you know anything about Google, if you go to Google now and search something that's top of funnel, like things to do in Vietnam, Vanessa, you'll find that there's a answer at the top that's produced by AI generally. It's called Google's AI overviews, and it is starting to infiltrate nearly every single search that you perform. Now, I'm not going to get into who owns the content, into the copyright law, et cetera. That's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about how to work with that. So before we dive into the core presentation, one of the things I wanted to mention is this is not going away. And I think everybody knows that. Everything from ChatGPT search to Claude that just got search functionality to Perplexity to Google. You're going to see most answers are no longer necessarily going to direct you to a website. They're going to give you the answer in search. And where we're seeing that a lot is top of funnel. So those terms that Vanessa might search when she's planning her trip to Vietnam, like what's the weather like in Vietnam, those might be answered there. But you'll also find that if you search for tours in Vietnam, generally you're going to get companies, whether it's distributors like Viator or individual tour operators. I wish I knew a specific Vietnam tour operator. If you are one, feel free to give yourself a shout out in the chat. But you'll see that middle and bottom of funnel content on organic search is still working very well. And top of funnel content can drive performance. It just requires that you're okay with not being able to track it quite as well. Fortunately, there's a couple of really great tools that are coming on market. If you want to talk about those with me, follow me on LinkedIn, or we can connect after this conversation and I can share with you some of the ones that we're testing. I don't think any of them are good enough yet, the ones that'll let you see how you're performing in AI responses. I don't think any of them are necessarily good and consistent enough yet for me to endorse one publicly, but there are some really neat and interesting things going on in that space. So now that I've talked about the AI piece, which I'm happy to talk about more in the Q&A section at the end, assuming I don't get carried away and waste a lot of time on one of these topics that doesn't need as much time, I want to talk a little bit about what we've learned collectively as an organization over the past half decade of working specifically and only with the travel industry. We see 5 key areas that the travel industry, specifically in addition to tours and activities, tends to need to work on growing. Number one is we see a lot of people using marketing metrics as goals. So things like impressions, views, shares. These are all things that can help give you guidance as to what's working a little bit, but they don't actually tell you if you're performing at a revenue standpoint. So we'll talk about how we look at SEO, paid media, and every channel from a money generation standpoint, which ultimately for small business owners like you and me, we need to make sure that we are driving outcomes. Number 2 is relying on what's available in the ad platforms. One of the really cool things about tours and activities is tours and activities are one of the last things that gets booked. And I know I said cool, I know that frustrates a lot of people, but actually it gives you a wealth of data if you're able to target people that you know have already booked their hotel. Because generally, again, the tour and activity is not the first thing to book for a trip. Another one is not really understanding how travelers research, plan, and book. And that's what we're going to talk about. That's a follow-on to what I just said. And then the last 2 are number 1, channel dependence, which is whether it's at the high level where you're over dependent on OTAs, you're over dependent on direct, or at the more granular level where you're over dependent on Google Ads as a specific channel within direct. So we'll talk about that. And then finally, creative strategy, which ultimately is what the people see when you're advertising, and even with organic search or influencer social, how we go about testing and making sure that our creative is working. This is all of that in a different visual, so I'm just going to skip it. And we're going to start right with principle number 1. We talked about bookings, right? We talked about the things that drive money for us small business owners, and bookings need to be the North Star goal. So every decision you make, you want to make sure that you can map it back to a reason that results in bookings. I know it feels like a dopamine hit when we get a bunch of views on a social media post, but let me talk to you about organic social. Organic social is a really cool channel for a lot of brands. If you're in travel, is your organic social Facebook page for one destination really likely to drive bookings? Are you going to build a loyal follower base for a single visit destination or a twice in a life destination where it's actually going to help to have a bunch of people following your Facebook page? That's the way I want you to think. Because in a lot of cases, in some cases the answer can be yes to that, but in a lot of cases the answer is no. The number of followers really doesn't matter. It doesn't move the needle at all for you. So what I'm encouraging people to do here is pivot your focus from let's get these vanity metrics to let's map the things that get to bookings. Now, I know this sounds like everybody is thinking, of course. There's a reason I'm saying it, and it's because I talk to probably 10 to 15 new travel brands every week and hear the wrong metrics being focused on. So for each of these 5 principles, we're going to take a deeper dive with a couple of follow-on slides, and I'm going to show you what that looks like for bookings as the North Star. So there's going to be a couple of screenshots that you see in this presentation. One of our core values at Propellic is generosity of knowledge. So we love to share, we love to teach. If you want any of this, my email and contact information is going to be at the end of this presentation. Shoot me an email and say, hey, that thing on that slide about organic traffic mapping to revenue forecasts, can you send me the template for that? And I will happily send you the template for that. And what this is right here is an example of taking organic search away from a vanity metric, which is traffic and rankings. That's one that people generally use to indicate how well organic search is working and putting it in the context of how many bookings can organic search actually drive, which becomes increasingly more important as we move into an era when organic search is becoming much more difficult, much less definable, and much more infiltrated by AI overviews and AI answers. We need to know that it's not just a waste of money and traffic generation to drive organic traffic, and I mean to work on your organic strategy, because traffic is not necessarily going to go up for the long run. We're going to continue to see traffic deterioration, but that doesn't mean we're necessarily going to see bookings deterioration. So when we talk about how we understand what it takes to drive revenue with organic search, it's not that complicated of a function. I might say it twice because sometimes it comes out of my mouth in a weird mumble jumbled up way. But let's talk about financial modeling around organic search. So it's really, the function is quite simple. It's how many people search this, how many people click this, then how many people book, and what's the average booking revenue. That's the formula. So I'm going to walk you through it in this instance. So for instance, we look at someone who has, maybe they've got a private walking tour, average order value is about $300. And if 100 people hit their website, 1.4 bookings typically happen. So now we just need to figure out of the people searching based on where they rank, how many people are going to visit their website. And this spreadsheet, again, if you reach out to me, I'm happy to share it with you, because I think it's really helpful for people to actually put real booking volume numbers to their organic search initiatives. You can actually forecast what it's going to do for you from an income standpoint to rank in position 1, 2, or 3. And that can help you set your goals and track your forecasts against what you're planning for. On the paid media side, very similar story. So paid media generally, when you're running Google ads, Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, which is, unless you're in corporate events, corporate bookings, it's not, LinkedIn's not necessarily the right channel for you. But let's use like TikTok, Meta, and Google. What we look at is there's a lot of numbers involved in paid media. Paid media generally does a better job of understanding and optimizing for business outcomes than organic search does, just because it's much closer. You can track the outcomes better. But even so, when you're looking at performance, you don't necessarily need to be on every channel. You can put each channel line by line and determine based on performance where you want to allocate your budget. So really the concept around all of this is not necessarily these specific screenshots of the specific strategies that I'm putting in front of you. I really high level want to hit to turn home, to drive home this point that when you're making a decision, always make sure and have that second gut check. Is this actually going to drive bookings, or is this just filling my cup because it makes a specific metric look better? And even with paid media, here's another template I'm happy to send you if you reach out. You can forecast based on one change in a specific metric what that does from a revenue standpoint down the line. So try to get more scientific, try to get more mathematical about your marketing investments. I talk to a lot of people that really don't understand what's going on. And I did a presentation at a tours and activities conference a couple months ago, back in October. And one of the operators in the room said, "What if I don't want to do this? What if I don't want to spend the time? What if I want to hire someone to spend the time?" My response is, don't be lazy. Do the hard stuff. Do the hard things that are going to get you visibility into your business's performance so you can actually understand what's happening. Only when you've got, a director of marketing and when you've really scaled can you really rely on someone else. If you're working with an agency, if you're working with a freelancer, I encourage you to still be very, very in the game. Don't just wipe your hands. This is the most important thing in your business, is driving bookings. I'm going to pivot a little bit to another topic. This one's really interesting. So we talked early on about this one's mostly applicable to people who are running ads on social. We talked at the very beginning of this presentation about traveler segments. Well, we didn't talk about segments. We talked about the fact that in the booking order, typically tours and activities are one of the last things that's booked. It's typically flight, hotel, tours and cars maybe at the same time, often a day before, which is one of our favorite things in this industry, right? When someone books a day before, it makes it very easy to resource plan and capacity plan. Our guides love it. I know it's April 2nd, but that was all set in the tone of April 1st, of April Fool's Day, in case anybody was curious. So when we look at audience segments, we're talking about who are we targeting in Meta. So what I want to point out here is, in a lot of cases, if you're going into Meta, let's take this hypothetical company. I'm going to pretend I own a helicopter tour operator called Bliss Helicopters in Hawaii. And if I want to go on Meta and get social advertising to convert travelers to purchasers, this is the tools that I have. I can target people who show interest in Hawaii. I can target people who show interest in the national park. I can target people who are frequent travelers. I can use one of the most inaccurate and unreliable Facebook metrics, and that's top 10% of US households and income, because this is maybe an $1,000 tour. I can use targeting females. That's my typical purchaser. Typically, they're, young families, 27 to 45. So I can do all that, right? And that's interesting, but it's not great, because I would argue that there's probably about 20 million people in this audience, and maybe only a third or a fifth or an eighth or a 20th are actually traveling to Hawaii, right? So it's somewhat directionally representative of people that are interested in Hawaii, but it's not actually going to drive travelers that are going to Hawaii. So when I talk about segments, I'm just going to read this other option for targeting on Meta for Bliss helicopters and show you what else is possible. So instead of that previous one, I can keep the female, I can keep the 27 to 45, but I can also target people who are traveling to Hawaii in the next 15 days because we know they have a confirmed hotel booking. That's a very different conversation from this, right? I can target people who have the hotel booked on the island that my helicopter tour operates. Maybe the ones that booked first in business class travel that generally show the behaviors of adventure travel. Maybe they've been to the Galapagos or something like that. I don't know. Whatever you find is common between your travelers and what they do before they come to your tour. Maybe they have luxury travel behaviors. They spend 20 to 60,000 a year on their travel. They're what we call high digital recognition, which means we can find them pretty easily and target them pretty easily. And maybe they're avid travelers. They're members of 2 loyalty programs. That shows that they're professional self bookers. They might not be working with a travel agent. This is a much better audience to target than this. And I always get asked how. So it depends. It depends on how big you are and what your media budgets are on whether or not you can access this data, and you have to do it through an agency or you can get it direct from suppliers. There are places where you can get it direct. You can get it direct from Adara, from Sojourn, or you can work with agencies that have partnerships with those if you're on the smaller side to actually get to get on the radar and be able to use those audiences. But you can pull this data into Meta. This data doesn't exist in Meta. There are third-party companies that make relationships and partnerships with airlines, cruise lines, hotel groups, and aggregate all this data and then sell it to advertisers like us. And what I'm telling you is the performance that you see when you target an audience like this versus like this is kind of outstanding. It well more than makes up for the cost of the data. So now we've talked about both traveler segments and we've talked about North Star goals. I've got a heater on in this room and I'm like burning up. Now it's off. Maybe I'll recover. And also my camera keeps going out of focus. It's okay. Everything's fine. I just visualize that dog. I visualize like the dog that's in the picture. Everything's fine. Yeah. Everything's on fire. That's the literally, because it's like 98 degrees in here. Sorry. That's like what, 40 Celsius for all those? Okay, cool. There we go.
Conversion.
Gotta globalize the content. I'm silly American over here. I'm sorry. I know how the world feels about us right now. Anyhow, principle 3, traveler intent unlocks bookings. So travelers purchase differently than e-commerce shoppers. We know this, right? I mean, we all go on trips. Most of us go on trips. Vanessa, how long have you been planning your Vietnam trip?
Oh, more than 7 months.
More than 7 months. When's the trip?
End of this month.
Okay. So you're going. So 7 months, 200 days, 210 days. We see somewhere between 170 and 200 is not uncommon at all. Typically it's like closer to 120, but there are the ultra planners like Vanessa for sure. And walk me through that booking process. How did you choose Vietnam?
We needed to find a location that was in between New Zealand and the UK. And so Asia, we were looking around with different countries we wanted to go to, and Vietnam was there.
Okay, so you chose Vietnam. And how did you figure out where you wanted to stay in Vietnam?
We knew we wanted to stay somewhere close to a beach. We wanted it to be kind of resorty, but still be able to go out and into the cities and the towns and experience the cultural aspects.
Got it. Okay. And what was the first travel component that you booked for the trip?
The hotel.
The hotel.
Yeah, and then we did, or it might have been flights and then hotel. It was one of the
Either way, I mean, it's not that uncommon to book the hotel first.
yeah.
It's typically the flight first, but
Hmm.
you seem like a planner. Like I'm the type of person that books the flights and then shows up and realized that I booked the hotel for the wrong week.
Oh.
So, so I'm no longer allowed to book things for my family trips, is what we've come down to, is what my spouse and I have decided. Um, so you booked your hotel and flight, maybe one or the other first, and then how are you getting around? Did you rent a car?
We've rented a car, and then some of the tours provide like a pickup service.
Okay, and the car rental, and how long ago did you book the car?
I don't think we've actually booked it yet, but we
There
have
you
it on
go.
the list. Yeah.
And and it's a week away from the trip, and you just asked about what to do
Yeah.
at the beginning of this, so I
Hmm.
take you haven't necessarily booked all of your activities,
Yeah, not all of them are booked.
but all of them are with Boken operators, right?
Some of them are, and then some of them
I'm kidding. You don't have to answer that.
are.
So what Vanessa's describing is the typical travel research planning and booking process. It's where should I go? What are my options? Who am I going to book it with? How can I further enrich my experience? And that's the tour and activity booking and the flight, I mean, in the car booking, and then finally the sharing of the trip. Um, a lot of us in this space, a lot of us tour and activity operators in this space are still doing a lot of where should I go content, which blows my mind. Maybe it's just because I'm a nerdy marketer and can see the data and all of this, but we see quite frequently targeting of best places to travel in Southeast Asia from tour and activity operators with a tour maybe in Singapore, which is one tiny place and one tiny, not tiny, one tiny place in one big corner of the world. Singapore is tiny. Nobody can argue that with me. It's like
Hmm.
smaller than the city that I live in, but it has like 4 times the people. Um, but that's not working. I told you top of funnel content isn't working for 2 reasons at the beginning of this. Number one, the travel research planning and booking process for Vanessa took 200 days. Conversion windows on ad platforms for tracking are 90 to 180 at best. 90 is more likely, and the data accuracy when you get that far out from the initial click is very poor. So what that tells me is I'm not going to be able to track the performance. I don't know if this is working. So let's start somewhere else. Let's start maybe what are my options there? That happens typically about 30, 40 days. You can see this whole timeline somewhere around 120, 130 days. This is from Expedia's path to purchase research. So this is data from about a year and a half ago, I believe is when it came out, late 23. And when we go to the what are my options, it's I've selected a destination. What should I do there? That's when you can start targeting, specifically larger tour and activity brands with 10, 20, 50 locations, things to do in city name. That's the very highest in the funnel I would go for content and for paid search. Paid social, I would use intent audiences and target people who have already booked their hotels and flights. Who am I booking with? When someone searches food tour in city name, that is a term that I would target for sure as a tour and activity operator with paid search, with organic search, any other channel that's intent based like that. And then make sure you get people to share. 50% plus of travel bookings are driven by social and personal referrals. So, all in all, when you're thinking about how you're positioning your content, whatever you're doing, make sure you're looking at the right points in the research and planning journey. If we're trying to help people decide where to go, we're too early. We are too small of organizations to pull people down the funnel. You look at companies like Viator, you look at any sort of OTA, that's their challenge too, making sure that if they drive that initial intent to get the booking down the funnel, it's hard for them too. So, with smaller budgets, with less resources like we have as operators, it's going to be even harder for us. So don't even try. That's what I would say. And say focus on the place where you have the most opportunity, and let the OTAs capture those bookings for you, the ones that are much harder to get. That's the reason you pay a commission to OTAs, is because they're doing marketing, right? So here's examples of how you would look at that. Now, this is travelers decided on a destination and they're considering options in destination. Best time to visit Hawaii, month by month guide. They haven't chosen a date. This is the type of content that's falling off now. This is the type of stuff that's getting hit by AI overviews. And this is probably going to get switched out from this presentation fairly soon. I would look at something more like best Mauna Loa tours, something like that. Wherever you're looking, I mean, I think that's on the Big Island. It's like macro, a macadamia nut factory or something like that. This is like I traveled to Hawaii when I was 8. I don't know how I pulled that from the deep depths of my mind. But when you're doing anything around content, just make sure that you're targeting a specific place in the travel booking process, and that place is actually relevant to driving a tour booking at that stage of research. Same thing with paid media, though with paid media, the more sophisticated you get, the higher up in the funnel you can go. You can start to inspire if you are tapping out all of your middle and bottom of funnel traffic. So the way I look at paid media is in advertising is start at the bottom of the funnel. When you've reached maximum impression share, which basically means you can't get any more without reaching decreasing marginal returns, you can move up a little bit and start working with maybe influencers if you're a larger brand to start with videos. I wouldn't necessarily do an influencer marketing strategy if I'm a tour operator that, runs with 1,000 passengers a year on a $50 to $100 tour. I think that there's much better uses for your money. And then the last couple of things, the last two are going to be this one. This is a big one. This is one of the ones that I see. We work with hotels, we work with tours and activities, we work with airlines, we work with cruise lines, we work with travel tech. Tours and activities is unique with this one. They struggle a lot. Not fully unique, but categorically representative of this. You know that feeling when you find something that just works and you want to do more of it because it's actually driving revenue? That's great to a point. So what we often see is companies with 90% of their distribution through OTAs and 10% of their distribution direct, or vice versa. People would argue that the direct one is entirely healthy compared to the indirect to the OTA version. I would argue with that. I would say you want to mix no less than 30-70 if you can target it between the two. The option to have the ability to fall back on one of those when one of them isn't working can save a business, especially in turbulent economic times, which we may or may not be in right now. Being able to, it's not just turbulent economic times, turbulent marketing landscapes. Everything is changing right now in marketing. It's pretty amazing how much is changing. But what I would say is try to target a healthy mix somewhere between 70-30 to 60-40 to 50-50 between direct and indirect bookings. And then we dive deeper into that. We dive into the channels specifically. So let's say you have 0 direct bookings right now. You're 100% OTAs and you want to get some more direct bookings. You can look at SEO and organic. It's still working. It's still driving bookings. Trust me. It is. It's actually a really powerful channel for customer acquisition for Propellic too. Tour operators search for agencies like us on Google and find us there. But if you're going to acquire travelers and you want to be visible on the direct channel, the two easiest channels for you are going to be search ads and organic search. And the way that's going to look is don't necessarily go and just do one and expect that one to perform, because sometimes it doesn't. And having that backup, having organic when you're relying on paid or having paid when you're relying on organic is a nice backup for your strategy. If you're starting from 0, you can expect paid to start working fairly quickly within a month or 2 if you're doing it well. And organic is going to take a lot longer to perform. Customer acquisition cost on organic, though, is lower generally in the long run than paid, and there's not as much competitor pressure. Because it takes 1 minute for a competitor to enter a paid media auction, but it takes a year for a competitor to get competitive on the SEO side. So think about both of those options. And then when you have multiple channels, we want to make sure we're using them together. So what I mean by that is I just told you that it takes 6, 12, whatever, how many months to get something to perform on the SEO side. It takes maybe a month to get something to perform on the paid media side. What you're going to find if you go and start investing in paid, for instance, is that you'll be able to tell if a keyword works fairly quickly or not because you have conversion tracking. Boken actually has been doing an exceptional job of being probably one of the best res techs in terms of conversion tracking. We have a lot of trouble with seeing through from the actual click, the first click, to if that person turned into a customer and booked a tour. The configuration with Boken is probably the best that I've seen on the market, and still, there's so much. Tracking is a never-ending problem is a reasonable word to use. Yeah. But if it takes us a month to figure out something on if something works with paid, and it takes us a year on the SEO side, before you go invest a bunch of time and effort in testing in getting a keyword to rank for SEO in organic search, run that keyword in Google Ads and see if it converts. Save yourself the time of trying to figure out if it works in organic. And furthermore, build retargeting audiences. If you know people are researching and hitting that middle of funnel term like best things to do in Vietnam, and you know that generally they book 7 days later, have a retargeting audience that retargets them on social for 7 days. And that gets you the compounding effect of letting your organic and paid work together, which is a really important and necessary component in a multi-channel marketing strategy. But just importantly, don't find yourself seeing that one channel works and then putting all your eggs in that basket. That creates a very risky business structure. Um, there's just so much more I could say about that. I'm an entrepreneur. I love small businesses. That is the easiest way to kill a small business is overdependence on one customer acquisition source. Don't do that to yourself. Um, Realistically, what I like to say is if you find something that works really well, it needs to be your only job to find something that works better. It's hard to turn off something that's working. I understand that. I'm not necessarily saying that, but I'm just saying don't get too comfortable with Google Ads being your only customer acquisition source. What am I missing, Vanessa, before we move to Principle 5?
What are you missing?
What am I missing? I've been talking a lot.
No, you haven't missed anything, unless I'm missing something. Is this a trick question?
It's not a trick question. Not a trick question. I'm looking for external validation that this is somewhat reasonably helpful.
No, I've been nodding my head. I'm taking my notes.
We're doing it. We're nodding our heads. I love it. Um, so last concept here in the performance bookings before we get to questions is what are you actually showing people with your ads? So I'm going to just read this. High performing visual content, absolutely necessary, but it's not often there. What we're talking about in terms of performance creative is treating creative like a mathematic equation rather than what feels good, what looks good. Creative is the hardest thing we do at Propellic because we send someone something and we say, what do you think? And we probably shouldn't ask that because really it's not up to us. It's up to the customer what works and what doesn't. So what we like to do when we're publishing new, these are really old screenshots, got to get this fixed, but when we're publishing new creative, what we want to make sure we're doing is using all the formats and testing all the formats. So that's micro videos and reels, sponsoring creators if we have any of our, if we have influencers advertising our brand, if you're a larger tour and activity operator, in-feed ads, carousels. We want to test every creative format to see what works best. There's hunches, videos working really well, specifically obviously on TikTok because it's really your only option for viability. But we want to make sure that we're testing all of the creative options because I want to show you what the difference is from an economic standpoint with actually I didn't quantify the investment here, but I can show you the difference in outcome. Let's say we have enough budget to get in front of 10,000 people. And our creative that we haphazardly put together and slapped on Meta, which is a perfect description of what most people do, is what we used to do before we figured this out, is maybe you get a 1% click-through rate. You always have a 1% conversion rate on your website. We're using that as a constant here. But if you get 10,000 views, 1% click from your ad, that's 1,000 clicks. That's 100 clicks. If 1% of those book, no, I did my math wrong. No, this is right. Yeah. And you get down to 10 conversions, 10 bookings at $2,000 per booking. These are maybe, again, like helicopter tours, large tours. That's $20,000 in revenue. There's something wrong with the math here, but the concept still stands. I think what needs to be the percentages are missing a zero or too many zeros. If you increase the click-through rate on that ad by 1 point, the impact doubles your outcome at the end. The creative, I would say, makes up 70% of the strategy. 30% of it is actually how you buy the media. And I think people focus on it the exact opposite. To increase the sales and profitability of your marketing investments and lower those acquisition costs, focus on iteratively testing creative. Depending on your budget, you could break it down even this far. If you're spending $30, $50, $100, $200,000 on paid social, you can get really crazy. You can say, we've got families that we're targeting, let's only show them families. We've got singles that we're targeting, let's only show them singles. We've got wellness travelers, let's only show them wellness experiences in our list of 50 tours that we sell. And test the formats, A/B test consistently. You should be launching tests very, very consistently. And here's another spreadsheet that I have and I'm happy to share with you. But really what this talks about is modeling, and I promise it's better math than this. This gives you the ability to test what the impact is of better creative, so you can see what the outcome is when you make that change, and you can model whether or not it's worth investing in that additional creative based on your budget. Last piece on creative that we see a really significant struggle with is that the pre and post click experience are different in a lot of cases. So you tell someone something in an ad and they land somewhere and it says something different. Not only is that going to create a poor user experience, it's also going to increase the cost of that click, because your ad score in Google Ads is going to go down, and they will increase the cost of clicks up to like 300 or 400% if the ad doesn't match the ad copy. 300 or 400% is a lot of percent, by the way. I think it's either two, I don't remember the exact number, but it's significant. It's more than 100% increase. So if you're paying $2 for a click, it's actually $4 in that auction. But notably, if you have it match, you're going to lead to a better user experience, and a better user experience results in more conversions. So you can see how travel shaped by your passions, travel the world your way, but we've got your way, your way. It's a consistent theme, which is what we want. So across the board, to wrap this up and kind of tie it all together, what we talked about today is make sure first and foremost that you're setting goals that are around bookings. When you do that, think about who you want to target and segment those people and build audiences with third-party data sources. Don't use what's in Meta necessarily. That's not good enough data if you're doing paid social. Monitor the channel performance and make sure that you diversify those channels. Don't get over-reliant on one or two channels. That includes both for your direct channels and your third-party distribution channels. When you've figured that out, make sure you're testing different creative formats and iteratively creating new creative, and always working on optimizing that creative strategy. So across the board, travel marketing, it's not easy. Focus on those goals and always be testing. If you want to get a report on how well you're doing these things, you can go to propellic.com/bookings. I'm going to leave that up here. This usually works. It was not easy to build. If you have any issues getting your output, shoot me an email. My email's here. It'll either be me or I'll connect you with a colleague that can get back to you. If you want any of those templates, just reach out to me and let me know what you want. This is going to be recorded, so you'll be able to access it and scroll back to the point that you thought was most interesting or helpful. Or you can scroll back to the part that was least interesting and least helpful, take a screenshot, post it on LinkedIn, and heckle me. Either way, I appreciate it. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Thanks, Vanessa.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brennan. I found that really interesting, especially the part where you said that your number one job should be to find something that works better than what you're currently doing, and always being innovative and changing up strategy and trying different types of content. I think that's very important for everyone to have in mind when starting this journey. I will, as Brennan mentioned, all of this, these resources will be available in the recording. I am going to take over the sharing screen.
Cool.
And I will quickly just share a bit about Boken, and then we will ask Brennan some questions. So now that you have all these tips to boost your direct bookings, how can you manage your bookings? So using Boken as a reservation system, if you're not familiar, can help you streamline your operations and grow and manage your new bookings. So whatever stage that your business is at, whether you are a one-person team or you're an established brand, Boken is here to help your business grow. And here are a few of the reasons that operators choose us As Brennan mentioned earlier, we do have the option to create your own website for free, or you can add widgets into your current website to make them bookable, so you can start receiving all of your bookings online. As you know, a lot of people are looking for things to be booked online, so it's great to be available for global travelers. You can also keep up with your customers using our CRM system, and one of our top tips for that is following up with your customers automatically with a post-experience follow-up to boost your 5-star reviews or gain feedback so you can constantly adapt and improve your product. And then when you're ready to grow your network, you can make the most out of our marketplace connections by connecting to suppliers and resellers in our marketplace to expand your reach with different OTAs like Viator and Get Your Guide and many, many more. Users who have joined the marketplace and connected from just 1 to 2 sales channels have seen an average of a quadrupling in growth of their GBV. So the marketplace is definitely a thing to dive into. So how much does it cost? We have different pricing plans suitable for your needs, but you are able to trial
Oh,
Boken.
wait. Can you go back to the last slide?
Oh, of course.
Sorry for interrupting. I promise I'm not hijacking.
No, you go for it.
See that Hidden Iceland is quoted in the bottom of this? I went on a tour with them in June last year. It was
Oh,
amazing. So shout out to them for their awesome work. Now you can continue.
oh, thank you. I love that. I love that little connection there. I have not been to Iceland yet, but that is definitely on the list.
I think I remember when I was driving in Reykjavik, I drove by the Boken office, if I remember
Oh,
correctly.
wow.
I
Love
think.
that.
Right.
Yeah, I love that connection. That's what a small world. So yeah, you can choose any of these pricing plans, and you have a 2-week free trial, so you can test whatever plan works for you. And we also have a special offer for everyone on the webinar today. After your free trial, we are offering a 25% off discount for your Boken subscription for the first 3 months. So you can claim that via the QR code here, and I will also email you the code tomorrow with the rest of the information about this recording and webinar. So we do have some time to ask Brennan some questions. So I did see a few ones in the chat, so I'm just going to quickly go through and pull some out to ask you. I've got one here from Mark, and they're asking, other than Google Ads, what are other possible places to advertise at less of a cost per click?
Sorry, what was the last part?
For less,
Less of a cost per click.
yes.
Okay, so before I get into this, I'm going to talk a little bit about metrics. So Mark, thank you for the question. I'm not trying to be overbearing. I'm going to use this as a coaching moment. Cost per click is sometimes a vanity metric. The reason being is if I can pay 5 cents for a click, that is going to drive someone that will convert, or 2 cents for a click to drive someone that won't convert, I'm going to pay 5 cents every time. So before we start thinking about the cost per click, let's make sure that we address the quality. I'm sure you already have done that, but for everybody else listening, I wanted to make sure that I was making that clear. If you really are looking for lower cost per click, I mean, generally you're going to find that on Bing in a lot of cases, and it's really easy to duplicate a search campaign into Bing. It's a very easy connection. Again, I don't necessarily focus on cost per click. I think I focus more so on what is the qualification of the people that I'm targeting. If I have an audience that's not as qualified, the cost per click is always going to be lower because there's less people interested in targeting them. Not always, but most of the case. But yeah, I would say if you're looking for a specific platform recommendation, you might look at expanding to Bing. That's typically when you've exceeded your ability to perform on Google, you're hitting diminishing returns.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of quick wins that people should start implementing ASAP, is there a tip or kind of order of things that they should start trying?
Oh boy. No, do it all today. No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding. What would be most important? Look for a new channel. Like, try to unlock a new channel. Um, you can grow marginally and incrementally by optimizing an existing channel, but if you find something new that opens up and makes a huge difference, it's not necessarily a quick win. You know what, actually, if you go take that quiz at propellic.com/bookings, you'll get up to 25 recommendations on quick wins you can take. So that's probably the best answer I have because I'm not smart enough to memorize all those things.
And how can someone determine what is the best channel for their target audience? I know that you had spoken about earlier with segmenting and getting all that information, but is there a way that as a tour operator I can sit down and say, I know for sure they're on here?
There's no way to know for sure. I can give you directional recommendations, and then I'm going to tell you what I always say, and it's go test it.
Hmm.
But Google's going to be your best bet generally if you're talking about advertising and organic, um, followed by social only if you are using qualified intent audiences. If you just post ads on social and do the boost function, expect zero bookings. Um, but with strong audience selection, you can perform well in social. And above and beyond that, I mean, user generated content sharing, like if you can get the people that are going on your tour to share. I know there's like tools like PhotoFlow and that help you basically distribute all of your tour photos through, or let tour guests distribute their photos. Word of mouth is the most powerful influencer of travel. So if you're looking for that, that's an option.
Perfect. And I've got a question here from James. He is from Venture Vienna, and for someone who is time limited and a single person company, what is the best social media channel to advertise on? So they've written Instagram, TikTok, etc.
For time limitation, so TikTok is really hard to master. It takes a lot of time, energy, and
Mhm.
testing. So since that all is the case, I'm going to say Meta, which
Okay.
covers covers YouTube. Oh my goodness. Wow. It's 10:49 a.m. for me, and I'm already not saying the right thing. Meta, which covers Instagram and Facebook. There you
Yeah.
go. And WhatsApp too, if you're really feeling spicy.
Yeah. And in terms of tools or platforms operators can use to track reports and analytics, is there anything that you recommend?
Yeah, so what we run into here is it really depends on your conversion tracking setup. So if you have a strong conversion tracking setup, typically that's going to be through GA4, which is the bane of everybody's existence. Like if you ask 100 marketers who likes universal analytics more than GA4, you're going to get 150 answers that say UA is better than GA4. But Data Studio, a really small, succinct report with just the things you care about. Bookings by source and year-over-year comparisons, and make sure you're considering seasonality. But Google Data Studio is probably the best and least expensive because it's free option, and it pulls directly from GA4, which is likely what most of the operators in this call are using.
Perfect. I have a question here from Timu. I think Sarah actually. I'm not too sure, but the question is that the customer path and the booking time that you showed earlier fits really nicely with where they are at the moment. But in terms of the off season with the marketing goal of visibility and awareness, what should they be looking to measure success and the angle, I guess, for the off season?
She's poking holes in my strategy. She's smart. She's smarter than me. Um, no, I would say so. You can get bookings in the off season. I think that people really throw their hands up and say they can. They cost more. They're less profitable. If you have a multi-person tour, you're not going to fill it up. You might lose money on it. I mean, off season's tough, and that's just travel, right? Um, I'm not going to go so far as to say look at the vanity metrics. You cannot convince me to say that. I will say they can be directionally helpful if really your goal is exposure. Just make sure you're building a retargeting audience so you can actually get those bookings based on the booking windows that you typically see. So if you're a US tour operator and you see significant performance, or global, I mean, June, July is huge for most of the world,
Mm.
at least Northern Hemisphere. Um, if you see significant performance then, and you know your booking window is a month out, go for impressions in January, February, March. Build a retargeting audience the last 90 days. Target them in April, May, June with booking offers.
Mm. Awesome. And I'm seeing a lot of people here who are interested in working more with Propellic and learning more insights specific to their business. So, what's the best way for them to contact you? Is it to fill out that form, reach you directly?
Yeah, so my email directly, Brennan at Propellic, and that's spelled Brennen at propellic.com. That report where nobody's going to reach out to you necessarily if you fill out that performance bookings report. That's our gift to you. You don't even need to give us your email. That's the generosity of knowledge core value that I talked about earlier. I'm on LinkedIn. Brennan LB or Brennan Bliss is my LinkedIn profile. Again, Brennan with an E. The other thing we've got that's an asset that like if you aren't ready to work with us, but you kind of want to like just stay in the loop, we've got something called the Navlog, which is bi-weekly. It's a newsletter that we publish that says this is what's new in travel marketing. It's free. There's no spam. We have also a podcast that we run. We're on episode 38. We have a lot of tour and activities content in there called the Travel Marketing Podcast. So there's a lot of ways to keep in the loop. I would say definitely connect on LinkedIn with me and get the podcast, sign up for the Now blog. And if you really are interested in talking to Propellic, reach out to me via email, and either I or someone on my team will be happy to chat.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, Brennan, for sharing your wisdom and staying online to do the quick Q&A with us at the end. And thank you to everyone who joined us today, whether you're watching live or you're watching the recording. As mentioned, I will send out this recording as well as the resources, and including the links to Propellic and Brennan's email so that you can contact him and explore things for your business. But thanks again for joining and taking time out of your day to join us. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and we will see you at our next webinar. Thank
Thank
you,
you so
everyone.
much, Vanessa. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Brendan. All right. Bye.